Hey guys, it's the Connect, and in this one, I wanted to quickly talk about what my Leaguestar build plans are going to be for 0.5, as well as what my release schedule for videos is also going to look like for those that are interested in following along with the journey or want to play the build themselves and all that good stuff. So, without any further ado, my 0.5 League starter is going to be, drumroll please, Companion Spiritwalker. Now, for those who regularly tune into the stream, this comes as absolutely no surprise. But if you aren't a regular and you're wondering why, the simple answer is it's a pretty cool fantasy. You're able to tame bosses, and if I'm being realistic, many of those bosses are going to be very but there will be those that are probably very, very good as well. The ones that I have as potentially being very good are stuff like Crowbell, Silverface. Those two are on the higher end, but I have the highest hopes for the Blind Beast, I would say, or its interlude fire equivalent, the Fiery Beast, whatever. I don't know what its name is, but ultimately it boils down to it is a very appealing fantasy, and sometimes that's enough. Now, on a separate note, a note that is so unrelated it might as well be in a different book, GGG might also have said that they tripled their damage, but like who's really counting, really? If you haven't already, do consider liking and subscribing, as it helps the channel out a lot. Now, before we go any further, I want to preface this by saying that this is by no means set in stone, and the plans I am going to talk about are my current loose plans, and I will be updating my Google Sheet with some of these trees and all these other things, but everything is basically going to be very, very subject to change based on whatever my experience and how things shape up on launch day. So just keep that in mind going forward. So we're going to start off with the Ascendancy, because this is the entire reason we picked Spiritwalker. And our first Ascendancy, and this is going to be what is likely the order I take them as well, we're going to be taking the Wild Protector node. This node is the one that gives us a bear. The bear can do a bunch of different things, from intimidating enemies to doing damage, and it's a free Ascendancy skill as well as a companion that doesn't take a companion spot. So early on, you're going to be very, very pressed on how many companions you can actually run. So I think Wild Protector is going to be very, very premium first node, followed by what I think is going to be either Idolatry or Natural Order. Now, I say Idolatry as a potential because there is a slight, very slight possibility that we'll have access to idols very early on, but the realistic approach is we're going to be going for the Natural Order. Why Idolatry is not higher up on the list is because we are very likely going to be relying on runes for res and all the other things early on in the league. That has been the experience so far. Maybe they've changed a lot, and it's different. That's why I put it up as a potential, but like it's very unlikely. Because minus early res for every non-idol is just rough. Why would you do that? It's literally minus 12 resistances for every single non-idol. That is a very steep cost to go Idolatry early on. So we're going to be leaning towards Natural Order as the second one, because Unique Tame Beast is the entire reason we're playing this Ascendancy to begin with. But we're also not going to be going for Cathar's Balance, because that increases the requirements for the equipment, which we kind of want to leave a bit on the laxer side until much later. Now, as a third Ascendancy, we're going to be picking up Cathar's Balance. Now, Cathar's Balance is a node that is very strong when you have a lot of added damage on your weapon. So this means once we pick this up, we're going to be looking for a very high damage weapon, either one-handed or two-handed, preferably one-handed, so we can still run a scepter. But there is a possibility that we'd be fine with a two-handed, but most likely we'd go for one-handed. Now, for the one-handed, you can go for a unique, like I said, or you can go for a rare mace. I recommend mace over spears because odds are maces will be cheaper, but either or, whichever you find that is more worth the value. You're just looking for as much raw flat damage as you can. You can go for any flats. You probably prefer flat fizz or potentially flat code, and I'll go over why flat code in a bit. But those are the two I would say, or maybe even flat chaos is fine as well. But those are the damage types I would recommend. And as last but not least, Idolatry, simply because this is the very end game point. We don't want that minus early res early on. later on, once we figured out our resistances and we're trying to push more companions and all that, we can pick up idolatry. Now we have some semblance of a tree here. This is, like I said, it's a very loose tree. I kind of know what I'm going for. Now, the important things to note is there are no nodes coming out of Spiritwalker that actually matter for our damage, and as such, we're just going to be picking up some movement speed, some evasion, some, I don't think there's deflection here, bro. Reduce movement speed while using skills. There's reduce movement speed penalty rather. There's evasion, all of that. And for defensive layering, we are going to be using deflection and armor as a deflection, evasion, and armor as a very big part of our defensive layering. That, alongside transferring damage to our minions, which we'll go over in a bit as well, will be the core of our defenses. And then for recovery, we'll probably just life flask it. I haven't really seen a good reliable source of recovery on Spiritwalker yet, so we'll have to see how that shapes up. But anyways, we're going to be taking up things like movement speed, things like companion movement speed, because this would be very nice. Nothing worse than slow minions, so this is very, very nice to have. Deflection, like I said. The trusted kinship node is keystone is very important if you do not have non-companion minions. And I say if you do not have it is because there are going to be two ways I can think of to run this build, and there's the version that has trusted kinship that only goes companions, and there's a version that runs undead minions for stuff like muster support, pain offering, things like that, but then has a much rougher experience with reservation. So if you are going for muster, you do not touch trusted kinship because you would be net negative on reservation most likely. But if you do go trusted kinship, then your odds are you're not going to be running muster. You still might dabble in pain offering, but just not muster levels of reservation going in there. Then we're going to be picking up some reservation for our companion skills here. We have this node, and I haven't decided how we're going to take advantage of inspiring ally yet. My idea is we're going to be using inspiring ally to do enough damage to immobilize an enemy, so that a node like Sikkim would actually be very, very high value, especially single target. So we're going to use this. I don't know what I'm going to use yet. I'm going to be looking into stun or freeze, and if I go into freeze, then the easiest ways to do it would be to get a decent amount of flat code on my weapon. So I am doing a bunch of cold damage, and my minions are also doing a bunch of cold damage, so we end up freezing a lot. That is, I think, what I'm leaning towards, and that is why I said cold damage is honestly something we could consider on our weapons earlier. We're picking up long distance relationship, unspoken bond. You know, I'll have this sheet, this tree in my Google Sheet for anyone who is curious as to what else is in here. I don't want to waste your time anymore. So with that said, what else is going to be in this build aside the skill tree? Of course, we're going to be using the Sylvan Effigy staff, which, if you don't know, is a scepter that gives you an Asmerian wolf that honestly I'm looking forward to using. But the main reason we use this scepter is because it allows us to have any number of companions. Now, having any number of different companions means we can have 5, 6, 7 companions. It doesn't matter, so long as you are not repeating the same monster. So you can have a Quadrilla, a Boar, a Vile Vulture, a Boss, etc. The list goes on. Your wolves, all of those companions. Whereas before this stuff, you're limited to 2. Now the wolf is going to be an important part because it says here that it inspires allies. So that means it is going to have some buffing aspects to it, to the rest of your minions. And then you're also going to be able to use its command skill, which will summon 7 wolves, which dash on enemies and deal damage, basically just extra damage essentially. So that is also going to be a very, very key part in using this scepter. And alongside this, we're going to be using a rare mace in the end game, because a rare mace can get some pretty nice flat damage modifiers for the Cathar's balance node we mentioned, which gives your companions a % of that. Now, to enhance that %, we're going to be running Outdoors Legacy, which is a rune that basically destroys unique items, so you can get that effect on a different item. I'm going to be using this on potentially multiple runes, depending on if there's any limitations on this that I'm not aware of. But currently, we do not see any limitations, and we can use these to our heart's content so long as we use only one per unique. And I know the unique is limited to the same base type. So for a mace, it has to be a unique mace that gives it the effects. You know, you can't use a unique mace effect on this pair, for example. So we're going to be using Alder's Legacy on Sero's Grit, and as you can see in this video, that gives us the maximum quality is 40%, which is just a whole lot of more flat physical or whatever damage that we're using on the mace. Now there are other runes that could also be potentially really strong. Runes like these Breath of Alder, which makes it so all fire and lightning become cold modifiers. There is a universe where we get a 2-socketed staff. We use Sero's Grit, like I mentioned, and then we just go for a triple elemental mace, and then we convert fire and lightning to cold. So we have a very, very high cold damage mace that we give 60% to our minions, and then they are now very capable of freezing, which gives them immobilize, which then gives them extra damage against enemies that we freeze. And also it's also a very nice defensive layer. So that is what I am probably going to be leaning towards as my mace. Now keep in mind, these are already 2 non-runes we're using, and because we're already using 2 non-runes, and we know for a fact that we're going to be using Star Conjurer's Head, which is likely going to have damage taking transfer to our companion's life before you, which is again one of the defensive layers I mentioned earlier. So it is not likely going to be as high as 15%, but I'm expecting anywhere from like 8% to like 10%. It's going to be very, very nice, and it's going to be basically mandatory. So that's already 3 runes that we are guaranteed to use. Maybe 2 that are guaranteed and 1 that is a very nice to have. But then we also have Trench Timber, which is also an option for the runes, which we could potentially be getting level of minion skills, which is a very, very big damage multiplier. So again, another option. So like guaranteed, we're using minimum 3 runes, maximum 4, depending on how practically mace we get, I guess. But odds are we're only going to be using 3. If during league start I see that there are so many runes from the new league that are so insane that I just absolutely have to use it, I'm not going to run idolatry. So this node is up in the air, and if I choose not to run idolatry, there are a few other things I could get instead. I could maybe try to prioritize going for something like vivid stampede, so I can have some extra CC potential coming from those stags. I could decide that I would sacrifice something and try to get the full sacred unity for the extra empowerment on the bear, which is a giga defensive ascendancy, which is very, very nice to have. Stuff like that. Again, everything here very, very work in progress. And now for the defensive layering, like I said earlier, we're going to be running armor, we're going to be running deflection, we're going to be running damage transfer. I want to talk a bit about the damage transfer portion, because that is the one that is not as straightforward as the others. Because for armor evasion, we're going to be taking just straight up nodes on the tree that give us armor evasion. We're going to be taking some other nodes that give us stun threshold based on armor evasion on helmets. We're going to be taking immune to bleeding or poison. We're going to be taking evasion rating as extra armor. We're going to be taking +1 evasion per 1 on equipped glove, which, side note, this node essentially means your gloves, you want to only have a pure armor glove, which you would then get flat evasion from as well. So this is pure armor, but everything else is hybrid armor evasion, boots, helmet, chest, all that hybrid. But yeah, the damage transfer portion, we're basically going to be running stuff like the captivating companionship, which transfers 5% to damageable companions life before you. This is 5% from here. It is 15% probably less from the helmet. We are also going to be running Ramira's Recruiter on whatever I perceive to be the lowest damage minion I have. Odds are it's going to be, I don't know who it's going to be yet. The bear might be ZDPS, the bear might not be. My money's on the bear, but we'll see. But Ramira's Recruiter is going to be where we get an extra 10% damage transfer, and this is also going to be a source of some extra recoup, because any amount of damage that hits the minion that has this gem, I recoup double that. So now that we're transferring 10% from here, an extra 8% from the I'm just going to say 8% for Darkonja's Helm Rune. My guess is it's 80%. That's 18%. We have 5% from the tree. That's 23%. All these sources will add up to be a very, very strong defensive layer for you, pretty much. That pretty much covers everything now that I talk about regarding this, my Leaguestar plans. It is going to be very touch and go, but I'll do my best to keep my shit up to date as expected. And on that note, some of you may have noticed that I haven't posted as much in past like half a year. The reason is IRL has been very, very hectic for me for a minute now, essentially. And while that hasn't changed, I am going to be trying to make more videos this Leaguestart. So long as the videos keep performing, I will keep making update videos on a daily basis until about Wednesday-ish, which is when I might ease off on the update videos. But I will be keeping all my progress on my build sheets. I will be having like any changes in how I'm scaling it will show up there, yada yada yada. So basically the TLDR is we're going to be trying to post once every day if the videos keep doing well, and we'll go from there essentially. And as always, this Leaguestart, I am going to be streaming for what will likely be 12-16ish hours on day one. So if you are even slightly curious as to what it is that I am doing and what changes I have made, feel free to stop by and ask. I will literally run you through most of everything I have done or what my experience has been like so far, so you can have a better experience. If you haven't already, do consider liking and subscribing. It helps the channel out a lot. I'm really excited for this Leaguestart. Let me know in the comment section what you will be Leaguestarting, if you're going companions, what you're most excited about, stuff like that. I am also very curious as to what you guys are planning on running. With all that said, thank you for watching.